Have you ever reached the end of a busy day only to wonder where all your time went? You're not alone. Time is our most precious and non-renewable resource. Once spent, it's gone forever. In today's hyper-connected world where demands pull us in countless directions, mastering time management isn't just a productivity hack, it's essential for achieving goals, reducing stress, and creating balance in our lives. Think about it, we all have exactly the same 24 hours each day. Yet some people consistently accomplish more, experience less stress, and even find time for activities they enjoy. The difference isn't more time, but rather how effectively that time is used. Studies show that people with strong time management skills are not only more productive but also report higher levels of well-being and career satisfaction. The good news is that time management isn't an innate talent but a learnable skill. Each strategy I'll share has been proven effective across different professions, personalities, and circumstances. More importantly, these aren't just theoretical concepts, they're practical tools you can implement immediately to see tangible improvements in how you work and live. Throughout this audiobook, we'll explore 18 powerful rules that will transform how you approach time. You'll learn to distinguish between what's merely urgent and what's truly important. You'll discover techniques to overcome procrastination, eliminate time-wasting activities, and create systems that ensure your most important work gets done consistently. My goal isn't to help you cram more activities into your already busy day. Instead, these strategies will help you focus on what matters most, reduce unnecessary stress, and ultimately create more space for the people and activities that bring meaning to your life. Let's begin our journey toward mastering the precious resource of time. Chapter 1. The Power of Planning. Imagine setting out on a cross-country road trip without a map, route, or destination in mind. You might have an adventure, but you'd likely waste time, resources, and possibly never reach any meaningful destination. Yet this is exactly how many people approach their days, reacting to whatever comes their way without a clear plan for what matters most. A study from Harvard Business Review found that professionals who took just 15 minutes to plan their day accomplished significantly more than those who dove straight into their work. This simple act of planning creates what psychologists call an implementation intention, a mental commitment that dramatically increases your likelihood of following through. Planning serves as your time roadmap, providing direction and focus when distractions inevitably arise. When you have a clear plan, you're less likely to be sidetracked by the constant barrage of emails, messages, and interruptions that fragment your attention throughout the day. To create an effective planning system, start by capturing all your tasks, commitments, and ideas in one place. Whether you prefer digital tools like Trello, Asana, and Notion, or the tactile satisfaction of pen and paper, the key is consistency. Your brain expends valuable energy trying to remember uncaptured tasks, a phenomenon psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. By writing everything down, you free your mind to focus on execution rather than remembering. Break complex projects into smaller, actionable steps. Our brains respond better to specific, concrete actions rather than vague aspirations. Instead of listing, "work on marketing campaign," try, "draft 3 email subject lines," or "create 5 social media image concepts." These smaller steps create clear starting points that help overcome procrastination. Effective planning also means being realistic about what you can accomplish. Most people consistently overestimate what they can complete in a day while underestimating what they can achieve over longer periods. A good rule is to plan for about 60% of your available time, leaving buffer space for unexpected tasks and interruptions. Remember that planning isn't about rigidity, it's about intention. The best plans maintain flexibility while keeping you oriented toward what matters most. As you develop this planning habit, you'll find yourself starting each day with greater clarity and ending with a satisfying sense of accomplishment. Chapter 2. Strategic Prioritization. Have you ever finished a hectic day feeling exhausted yet somehow unsatisfied with what you accomplished? You were busy all day, constantly working, but the important projects that really matter somehow didn't move forward. This common frustration highlights the critical difference between being busy and being effective. The key to breaking this cycle lies in strategic prioritization, recognizing that not all tasks deserve equal time, attention, or urgency. President Dwight Eisenhower understood this distinction well, creating what we now call the Eisenhower matrix to separate tasks into 4 categories: important and urgent, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither urgent nor important. This simple framework reveals a profound truth: we often confuse urgency with importance. Urgent tasks demand immediate attention and create that rush of adrenaline that feels productive. Important tasks, meanwhile, contribute to our long-term goals, values, and missions. They rarely announce themselves with the same immediacy but have far greater impact on our lives and careers. To implement this matrix in your daily life, start by listing all your current tasks, then evaluate each one against 2 questions. Is this truly important to my goals and values? And, does this genuinely require immediate attention? Be brutally honest with yourself. Many seemingly urgent requests from others fail the importance test when measured against your priorities. For tasks that are both important and urgent, deadlines, crises, time-sensitive opportunities, schedule them first. For important but not urgent tasks, relationship building, strategic planning, personal development, block dedicated time on your calendar before these eventually become urgent. Delegate or minimize tasks that are urgent but not important, and eliminate those that are neither urgent nor important. Another effective prioritization method is the ABCDE approach. Label each task on your list with one of these letters. A for vital tasks with serious consequences if not completed, B for important tasks with mild consequences, C for nice-to-do tasks with no consequences, D for tasks you can delegate, and E for tasks you can eliminate. Always complete all the tasks before moving to B tasks, and so forth. The true power of prioritization emerges when you align your daily tasks with your larger goals and core values. Ask yourself regularly, does completing this task bring me closer to my most important objectives? This question serves as a powerful filter against the constant stream of low-value activities that can consume your day. Remember that prioritization isn't a one-time exercise but an ongoing practice. As new information emerges and circumstances change, be willing to reevaluate and adjust your priorities. The most effective people aren't those who rigidly stick to a plan, but those who continuously ensure they're working on what matters most right now. Chapter 3: Smart Scheduling. Have you noticed how some weeks seem to fly by in a blur of activity with little accomplished, while during others you make significant progress on important projects? The difference often comes down to how you schedule your time. Smart scheduling transforms abstract intentions into concrete commitments by assigning specific time slots for execution. Consider this: research shows that simply having an intention to complete a task makes you 30% likely to follow through. But when you schedule that same task, assigning a specific day and time, your follow-through rate jumps to over 90%. This dramatic difference occurs because scheduling creates a clear commitment rather than a vague aspiration. The foundation of smart scheduling is understanding and working with your natural energy rhythms. Each of us has peak performance periods during the day when our focus, creativity, and mental sharpness are highest. For many, this peak occurs in the morning, though some experience it in afternoon or evening hours. Track your energy and productivity patterns for a week, noting when you feel most alert and effective. Once you've identified these optimal periods, protect them fiercely for your most important and cognitively demanding work. Schedule challenging projects, strategic thinking, and creative tasks during your peak energy times. Reserve routine administrative work, emails, and simpler tasks for your lower energy periods. When creating time frames for your scheduled activities, be realistic about complexity. Most people underestimate how long tasks will take, a cognitive bias known as the planning fallacy. Combat this tendency by using the 50-50 rule. Estimate how long you think a task will take, then add 50% more time. For new or unfamiliar tasks, consider doubling your initial estimate. Leave buffer time between activities at least 10 to 15 minutes to account for transitions, unexpected interruptions, and brief mental resets. These small gaps prevent the domino effect where one meeting running long throws off your entire day. Remember that scheduling isn't just about work tasks. Include blocks for breaks, meals, exercise, and personal commitments. These aren't optional extras but essential components of a sustainable schedule that prevents burnout and maintains consistent performance. Finally, review your schedule each evening to confirm the next day's plan, making adjustments as needed based on new priorities or information. This evening review provides closure on the current day while mentally preparing you for tomorrow's focus, allowing your subconscious mind to work on key challenges overnight. With consistent practice of smart scheduling, you'll find yourself accomplishing more meaningful work, experiencing less stress from missed deadlines, and enjoying greater confidence in your ability to manage competing demands on your time. Chapter 4: The Pomodoro Technique. Have you ever sat down to work on an important project, only to find yourself distracted, checking email, or scrolling social media just minutes later? Or perhaps you've experienced the opposite, working so intensely for hours that you emerge mentally exhausted, with diminishing quality and creativity. Both scenarios represent common challenges to productive work that the Pomodoro Technique elegantly addresses. Created by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s, the Pomodoro Technique is named after the tomato-shaped kitchen timer Cirillo used as a university student. This deceptively simple method harnesses the power of focused intervals to maximize concentration while preventing burnout. The core principle recognizes a fundamental truth about human cognition: our brains work best in concentrated bursts rather than extended marathons. Here's how it works. Set a timer for 25 minutes and commit to working on a single task with complete focus until the timer rings. No checking email, no social media, no responding to non-emergency interruptions. After the timer sounds, take a refreshing 5-minute break to rest your mind. After completing 4 of these cycles, take a longer 20 to 30-minute break to recharge. The science behind this approach is compelling. Research in cognitive psychology shows that our ability to maintain focused attention naturally declines after extended periods. By working in shorter intervals, you align with your brain's natural attention cycle rather than fighting against it. The technique also leverages the psychological principle of temporal motivation. The knowledge that the end is in sight helps maintain focus during challenging work. To implement the Pomodoro Technique effectively, start by selecting a specific task to work on. Be clear about your objective for the session. Eliminate potential distractions before beginning. Silence notifications, close unnecessary browser tabs, and inform colleagues you'll be unavailable. Then set your timer and commit fully to the task until it rings. During your short breaks, truly disconnect from your work. Stand up, stretch, get a drink of water, or take a brief walk. These micro breaks aren't just pleasant, they're essential for maintaining cognitive performance. The longer breaks after 4 cycles allow for deeper recovery and prevent accumulated mental fatigue throughout the day. While the standard 25 to 5-minute work-rest ratio works well for many, feel free to adapt the technique to your specific needs. Some people find that 50-minute work periods with 10-minute breaks better suit their concentration style, particularly for deeply creative or analytical work that requires significant ramp-up time. What makes the Pomodoro Technique so powerful is its accessibility. It requires no special equipment and can be applied to virtually any type of work. Whether you're writing a report, analyzing data, designing a presentation, or studying for an exam, this structured approach to time helps transform overwhelming projects into manageable chunks while keeping your mind fresh throughout the process. Chapter 5: Time Blocking. Have you ever looked back at your calendar for the past week and wondered how all those empty spaces somehow still left you feeling behind on important work? The culprit might be the common practice of scheduling only meetings and appointments while leaving the rest of your time unstructured and vulnerable to interruptions. Time blocking offers a powerful alternative by treating your calendar as your most strategic productivity tool. Time blocking transforms your approach to the day by pre-assigning specific blocks of time for different categories of activities. Rather than simply reacting to whatever demands arise, you proactively design your ideal day aligned with your highest priorities. Think of your calendar not just as a record of commitments to others, but as a visual representation of your commitments to yourself and your most important work. To implement time blocking effectively, begin by identifying the major categories of work you regularly engage in. For a marketing professional, these might include creative development, client communication, team management, and administrative tasks. For a researcher, categories could include data collection, analysis, writing, and literature review. Define your personal categories based on how you actually spend your working hours. Next, assess how much time each category realistically requires. This isn't about aspirational thinking but honest evaluation. Review past weeks to identify patterns and time requirements for recurring activities. Then start blocking your calendar with designated periods for each category. For example, you might reserve 10 a.m. to noon every Tuesday and Thursday for deep creative work, 2 to 3 p.m. daily for responding to messages, or Friday afternoons for weekly reviews and planning. When creating your time blocks, align them with your natural energy patterns we discussed in Chapter 3. Schedule your most demanding and important work during your peak performance periods, and routine or administrative tasks during your lower energy times. Remember to include blocks for email and communication rather than allowing these to interrupt your focused work throughout the day. One of the most powerful aspects of time blocking is the creation of theme days or theme blocks, where you focus on a single category of work. This approach minimizes the cognitive switching costs that occur when rapidly moving between different types of activities. For instance, you might designate Mondays for client meetings, Tuesday mornings for strategic planning, and Thursday afternoons for creative development. Protect your time blocks by communicating boundaries to colleagues. Update your status messages, close email when appropriate, and when necessary, find a physical space that signals your unavailability. Remember that time blocking isn't about becoming inaccessible but about being intentional with your accessibility. Of course, flexibility remains essential. Life and work inevitably bring unexpected demands requiring adjustment. The key is to consciously reassign blocks rather than abandoning your system entirely. If an urgent request disrupts your planned focus time, immediately reschedule that block elsewhere in your week. With consistent practice, time blocking transforms from a simple scheduling technique into a powerful framework for ensuring your most important priorities receive the time and attention they deserve. Chapter 6: Getting Things Done. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks, ideas, and responsibilities swirling in your mind? Do you find yourself remembering important commitments at the worst possible moments while driving, in the shower, or just as you're falling asleep? This mental clutter not only creates stress but also diminishes your ability to focus on the task at hand. David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology, often simply called GTD, offers a comprehensive solution to this common challenge. At its core, GTD provides a trusted system for capturing, organizing, and processing all the inputs in your life. The fundamental principle is simple yet profound. Your mind is made for having ideas, not holding them. By creating an external system to track commitments and next actions, you free your mental energy for creative thinking, problem solving, and present moment focus. The GTD methodology consists of 5 key stages: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. Let's explore how to implement each stage effectively. The capture phase involves collecting everything that has your attention, from major projects to minor tasks, from brilliant ideas to nagging concerns. Create collection points where you can quickly document thoughts as they arise. This might include a notebook, a digital app like Evernote or Todoist, voice memos on your phone, or a combination of tools. The key is having reliable capture methods available whenever and wherever ideas emerge. Once you've captured items, move to the clarify stage. Process each item by asking a simple question: is this actionable? If not, either discard it, store it as reference material, or place it on a someday/maybe list for future consideration. If it is actionable, determine the very next physical action required. This specificity eliminates ambiguity and reduces resistance when it's time to begin working. For example, rather than start marketing campaign, your next action might be draft email to design team requesting logo options. For multi-step projects, define successful outcomes and the sequence of actions required. This clarity prevents projects from stalling due to undefined next steps. In the organize stage, categorize action items based on context, energy level, priority, or other relevant factors. Create specific lists like calls to make, emails to send, errands to run, or items to discuss with specific people. These context-based lists make it easier to select appropriate tasks based on your current situation, energy, and available resources. The reflect stage involves regularly reviewing your system to maintain its relevance and completeness. Conduct a brief daily review to identify priorities for the day, and a more comprehensive weekly review to update projects, clear collection points, and align short-term actions with longer-term goals. This consistent review process builds confidence that nothing important is slipping through the cracks. Finally, the engage stage is about making confident decisions about what to work on in any given moment. With a complete inventory of possibilities organized by context, you can trust your choices about where to focus your attention right now. Implementing GTD requires initial time investment but yields tremendous returns in reduced stress, increased productivity, and improved focus. The system works because it addresses both the practical aspects of managing multiple responsibilities and the psychological barriers that prevent effective execution. By creating a trusted external system, you'll experience what Alan calls mind like water, the ability to respond appropriately to whatever comes your way without the constant background anxiety of forgotten commitments or unclear next steps. Chapter 7: Eat That Frog. Have you ever noticed how the most important task on your list often seems to be the one you most want to avoid? That challenging project, difficult conversation, or complex problem tends to get pushed aside in favor of easier, less consequential activities. This natural human tendency to procrastinate on important but challenging work is precisely what the Eat That Frog technique addresses. The peculiar name comes from a quote attributed to Mark Twain: "If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first." In this colorful metaphor, the frog represents your most important and challenging task, the one with the greatest positive impact on your progress, but also the one you're most likely to procrastinate on. The power of this approach comes from both psychological and practical advantages. Psychologically, completing your most challenging task first creates powerful momentum that carries through the rest of your day. You experience an immediate sense of accomplishment and release of tension that energizes rather than depletes you. This stands in stark contrast to the energy-draining effect of having an important task hanging over you throughout the day. From a practical standpoint, tackling your most important work before distractions multiply ensures that even if your day gets derailed by unexpected demands, you've already made progress on what matters most. Early mornings typically offer fewer interruptions from emails, calls, and colleagues, providing the quiet focus that challenging work demands. To implement this technique effectively, start by identifying your frog the evening before. Ask yourself, if I could accomplish only one thing tomorrow, which task would have the greatest positive impact on my goals? This clarity eliminates morning decision fatigue and allows your subconscious mind to process the challenge overnight. Prepare everything you need to tackle this task before ending your workday. Clear your desk, gather necessary materials, open relevant documents on your computer, and remove potential distractions. This preparation removes friction that might otherwise give procrastination a foothold in the morning. When you begin your workday, commit to working on your frog first, before checking email, social media, or news. These information sources trigger a reactive mindset that can easily pull you away from proactive, important work. Set a specific time period, even just 30 minutes, to make initial progress before allowing any incoming communications to capture your attention. For especially challenging frogs, consider using the Swiss cheese approach, poking holes in the task by spending just 5 minutes getting started. This tiny commitment often overcomes initial resistance and creates enough momentum to continue. You might also apply the Pomodoro Technique we discussed earlier, committing to just one focused 25-minute session on your most important task. Remember that eating your frog isn't about working longer hours but about being strategic with the hours you have. By focusing your freshest energy on your highest impact activities, you'll accomplish more meaningful work in less time while experiencing greater satisfaction and reduced stress. Chapter 8: The 80-20 Rule. Have you ever wondered why some people accomplish dramatically more than others despite working the same number of hours? The answer often lies in their understanding and application of the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. This remarkable pattern, first observed by Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto in 1896, reveals that roughly 80% of effects come from just 20% of causes. Pareto initially noticed that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Subsequent investigation revealed this same approximate distribution across numerous domains. 80% of sales typically come from 20% of clients, 80% of value is created by 20% of features in software, and most relevant for our discussion, 80% of your results likely come from just 20% of your activities. This principle offers a powerful lens for examining how you spend your time. When applied thoughtfully, it enables you to achieve maximum results from minimum effort by focusing your limited time and energy on high-leverage activities that drive disproportionate results. To harness the 80-20 rule in your daily work, begin by identifying your highest value activities. Ask yourself, which 20% of my tasks produce 80% of my most valuable outcomes? For a sales professional, this might be time spent nurturing relationships with key accounts. For a writer, it could be the uninterrupted morning hours spent drafting new material. For a manager, perhaps it's the one-on-one development conversations with team members. Once you've identified these high-leverage activities, schedule them first in your calendar and protect that time vigilantly. Remember that not all hours in your workday are created equal. An hour spent on your 20% activities is worth far more than an hour spent on low-value tasks. Next, examine the 80% of activities that produce only 20% of your results. For each of these lower-value tasks, consider whether you can eliminate, automate, or delegate them. Some activities can be eliminated entirely without negative consequences. Others might be automated through technology solutions or streamlined processes. Many can be delegated to others for whom the tasks might actually be high-value work aligned with their roles and development goals. The 80-20 perspective applies equally well to decision-making and problem-solving. When facing a complex challenge, identify the 20% of factors that account for 80% of the problem. By focusing your problem-solving energy on these critical few elements rather than the trivial many, you'll reach effective solutions more quickly. Similarly, when planning projects, focus on the 20% of features or deliverables that will satisfy 80% of user needs or project requirements. This prevents scope creep and resource dilution while accelerating delivery of core value. The real power of the 80-20 rule emerges through regular reflection and reassessment. As your work evolves, your high-value 20% activities will shift as well. Schedule quarterly reviews to evaluate which activities are truly driving your most important outcomes, then realign your time investments accordingly. By consistently applying the Pareto principle to how you work, you'll find yourself accomplishing more meaningful results with less effort and time. Rather than spreading yourself thin across countless activities of marginal value, you'll focus your finite energy on the vital few tasks that truly move the needle on your most important goals. Chapter 9: Masterful Organization. Have you ever spent 20 minutes searching for a document that should have taken 20 seconds to locate? Or found yourself repeatedly interrupting your workflow to gather materials you didn't prepare in advance? These seemingly minor inefficiencies compound over time, silently draining your productivity and focus. A study by the National Association of Professional Organizers found that the average person wastes nearly an hour each day searching for misplaced items or information. That's over 2 weeks of lost time every year. Organization isn't about perfectionism or aesthetics, it's about creating systems that reduce friction and cognitive load. Your brain consumes valuable energy making decisions and processing visual information. A cluttered workspace forces your mind to constantly filter irrelevant stimuli, depleting mental resources that could be directed toward meaningful work. Start by organizing your physical environment. Clear your primary workspace of everything except what you need for your current project. Create designated homes for frequently used items within arm's reach, and store less used materials further away. The goal isn't sterile minimalism but thoughtful arrangement based on frequency of use and logical grouping. Your digital environment often requires even more rigorous organization. Implement a consistent file naming convention and folder structure across all devices. Consider the touch it once principle when you open a digital file or email. Make an immediate decision about it rather than leaving it for later review. Delete ruthlessly what you don't need, and use tools like Evernote or OneNote to capture and categorize information you might reference later. For recurring tasks and processes, develop templates and checklists that eliminate the need to recreate or remember steps. A marketing professional might create email templates for common client communications, while a project manager could develop standardized meeting agendas. These resources seem like small improvements but collectively save hundreds of hours annually while ensuring consistency and reducing errors. Perhaps most importantly, practice anticipatory organization, identifying and removing obstacles before they arise. Before beginning any significant task, take 2 minutes to ask, what could interfere with completing this efficiently? Then proactively address those potential barriers. This might mean gathering all reference materials, clearing calendar conflicts, or preparing responses to likely questions. Implementation begins with a workspace reset. Schedule 90 minutes this week to completely clear and reorganize your primary work area. Then spend 20 minutes daily maintaining your organizational systems. Remember that organization isn't an end state but an ongoing practice that continuously evolves as your work and priorities change. Chapter 10: The Art of Delegation. Why do so many capable professionals find themselves drowning in work while struggling to delegate effectively? A Harvard Business Review study revealed that 40% of managers expressed low confidence in their delegation skills, despite recognizing its importance. This reluctance often stems from a potent combination of perfectionism, nobody can do it exactly like I would, fear of losing control, and the short-term efficiency of doing familiar tasks ourselves. Yet delegation isn't just about lightening your workload, it's about strategic multiplication of your impact. When you retain tasks that others could handle, you become the bottleneck in your own productivity pipeline and limit your contribution to higher-level work only you can perform. The first step toward effective delegation is task assessment. Review your current responsibilities and categorize each using these criteria: tasks that only you can do based on your unique skills, authority, or perspective, tasks that develop your core strengths and align with your primary goals, and tasks that could reasonably be performed by someone else with proper guidance. This third category represents your delegation opportunities. For each potential task to delegate, identify the most appropriate person based not just on availability but on their development goals and strengths. The most effective delegation occurs when the task provides growth opportunity for the recipient while removing lower-value work from your plate. When communicating delegated responsibilities, focus on outcomes rather than processes. Clearly articulate what success looks like, why the task matters, any non-negotiable parameters, and the deadline. Resist the temptation to prescribe exact methods unless absolutely necessary. Allowing room for the person's own approach often yields unexpected innovations and builds their capability. Provide necessary resources and context for success. Few things undermine delegation more than assigning a task without ensuring access to the tools, information, and authority needed to complete it effectively. Consider what background knowledge you take for granted that might not be obvious to someone new to the responsibility. Follow-up represents the most delicate balance in delegation. Too much oversight signals distrust and creates the very micromanagement you're trying to avoid. Too little follow-up risks discovering problems too late to correct course. Establish clear checkpoints based on the task's complexity and the person's experience level, then respect the autonomy you've granted between those checkpoints. Remember that effective delegation requires initial time investment that pays dividends later. The first time you delegate a recurring task might take 3 times longer than doing it yourself. By the third iteration, however, you've created capacity that compounds with each subsequent occurrence, ultimately freeing you to focus on work that creates the greatest impact. Chapter 11: Unwavering Discipline. A decade-long study conducted at the University of Pennsylvania found that self-discipline predicted academic performance more reliably than IQ. This finding extends beyond education in virtually every field. Disciplined consistency ultimately outperforms sporadic brilliance. Why? Because discipline is the bridge that transforms intentions into results, connecting what you plan to do with what you actually accomplish. Think of discipline as the engine powering your entire time management system. Without it, even the most sophisticated planning techniques and productivity methods remain theoretical exercises rather than practical tools. The good news is that discipline, contrary to popular belief, isn't primarily a personality trait but a skill that strengthens with deliberate practice. Building this skill begins with habit formation. Research from University College London found that establishing new habits takes anywhere from 18 to 254 days, with 66 days as the average. This explains why many time management efforts fail. People abandon practices before they become automatic. Start by selecting just one key habit that would significantly improve your time use, then design your environment to make this behavior easier than alternatives. For example, if morning planning is your chosen habit, place your planning tools on your desk before leaving each evening, remove potential distractions like your phone from your workspace, and consider pairing planning with an existing habit like your morning coffee. These environmental adjustments reduce the discipline required until the behavior becomes self-sustaining. Developing self-accountability strategies proves essential for moments when motivation naturally wanes. External accountability, making commitments to others, leverages our social instincts to follow through. Consider working with an accountability partner with whom you share weekly goals and progress. Alternatively, use commitment devices that create consequences for inaction, such as scheduling non-refundable appointments or pre-committing to donations if you miss self-imposed deadlines. Creating environments that naturally support focus rather than distraction represents another dimension of discipline. Review your digital workspace. Are notifications enabled on your devices? Is your email always open in the background? Does your phone remain within reach during focused work? Each small environmental adjustment compounds, either supporting or undermining your disciplined intentions. Perhaps most importantly, recognize that discipline functions like a muscle. It strengthens with use but fatigues under constant strain. This explains why willpower tends to diminish throughout the day. Schedule your most discipline-demanding activities earlier when your reserves are freshest, and build recovery periods that allow this mental muscle to replenish. The true power of discipline emerges through the compound effect of seemingly small actions over time. Consistently investing even 15 minutes daily in your most important work creates momentum that eventually renders difficult tasks almost automatic, requiring dramatically less mental effort to initiate and complete. Chapter 12: Batching similar tasks. Have you noticed how switching between different types of work throughout the day leaves you feeling mentally drained, even when you haven't accomplished as much as you'd hoped? This common experience stems from a cognitive phenomenon called context switching, the mental effort required to shift attention between different tasks, tools, or thinking modes. Studies from the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after an interruption, while other research indicates we lose up to 40% of our productive time to the mental transitions between different activities. Task batching directly addresses this challenge by grouping similar activities into dedicated time blocks. Rather than responding to emails as they arrive throughout the day, process your inbox during 2 to 3 scheduled periods. Instead of making individual phone calls whenever they come to mind, designate specific times for communication. By consolidating like tasks, you minimize the cognitive startup costs associated with shifting mental contexts. Begin implementing batching by identifying categories of work that naturally cluster together. Common batching categories include communication, emails, calls, messages, administrative tasks, expense reports, documentation, filing, creative work, writing, designing, planning, and analytical activities, data review, research, problem solving. Your specific categories will depend on your role and responsibilities. For each batch category, assign dedicated time slots in your weekly schedule when you'll focus exclusively on those tasks. Communication batches typically work well in mid-morning and late afternoon, while deep creative or analytical work often benefits from your peak energy periods. Administrative batches can effectively utilize lower energy times when your creative capacity naturally wanes. Prepare for each batch session by gathering all necessary resources and eliminating potential interruptions. Close unnecessary applications, silence notifications, and ensure you have everything needed to process multiple items without stopping. For example, a finance professional might batch process all monthly expense reports at once, with relevant documentation, submission forms, and approval systems already open and ready. Batching proves particularly valuable for routine administrative tasks that would otherwise interrupt higher-value work. Invoicing, data entry, meeting scheduling, and similar activities drain minimal energy when grouped together but create significant disruption when scattered throughout your day. By containing these necessary but lower-value activities within defined boundaries, you preserve your mental resources for work that requires deeper focus and creativity. Remember that batching isn't appropriate for every task. Emergency responses, time-sensitive decisions, and some collaborative activities require immediate attention rather than deferral to a batch session. The key is distinguishing between what truly needs immediate handling and what only feels urgent but could effectively wait for your next relevant batch. Start small by implementing just 1 or 2 batch categories in your coming week. Notice how this simple restructuring reduces the mental fatigue typically associated with jumping between different modes of work throughout the day, ultimately allowing you to accomplish more with less cognitive effort. Chapter 13: The Buffer Zone. Imagine boarding a train scheduled to make 10 stops with exactly 0 minutes allocated between arrivals and departures. How likely would that train be to remain on schedule by the final destination? This scenario mirrors how many people schedule their days packing commitments back-to-back with no margin for transition, unexpected issues, or human needs. The inevitable result is perpetual lateness, mounting stress, and declining quality of both work and experience. Buffer time. Intentional space between activities functions as the shock absorber in your schedule, providing essential margin to recover, reset, and prepare. Without these transitions, even the most carefully constructed day becomes fragile, vulnerable to the slightest disruption. Research from Microsoft's Workplace Analytics team revealed that employees with at least 15-minute breaks between meetings reported significantly higher productivity and engagement than those with back-to-back scheduling. This finding contradicts our intuition that maximizing every minute leads to greater output. The ideal buffer depends on the nature of your activities. For standard meetings or routine tasks, 5 to 10 minutes provide sufficient transition. For complex or emotionally demanding engagements like difficult client interactions or performance reviews, 15 to 20 minutes allows proper mental preparation and decompression. For major transitions between different work contexts, such as moving from focused creative work to collaborative sessions, 30 minutes helps your brain fully switch modes. Implementing buffer time begins with a calendar audit. Review your typical schedule and identify where you consistently feel rushed or mentally unprepared. These pressure points indicate where buffers would create the greatest immediate benefit. Then establish a simple rule: never schedule anything without building in appropriate transition time before and after. Buffer zones serve multiple practical purposes beyond mere breathing room. Use these intervals to handle quick follow-ups from the preceding activity, prepare mentally for what's coming next, address basic human needs like stretching or hydration, or simply reset your attention through a brief walk or moment of mindfulness. These small interventions prevent the cognitive fragmentation that occurs when rushing from one context to another without closure or preparation. For external meetings or appointments, adopt the practice of time blocking more than the event itself will require. If a client meeting typically takes 60 minutes, block 80 minutes in your calendar to accommodate travel, technology setup, gathering materials, reviewing notes, and having contingency time for the conversation to run long if valuable. Remember that buffer time isn't wasted time, it's essential infrastructure that makes the rest of your schedule sustainable and effective. These margins allow you to be fully present in each activity rather than mentally rushing ahead to the next commitment or processing what just occurred. The quality of your work and interactions will improve not despite these gaps but because of them. Chapter 14, Deep Work, Not Half Work. A study from the University of London found that constant electronic interruptions while performing cognitive tasks lowered effective IQ scores by an average of 10 points, more than twice the impact of smoking marijuana. Yet this is precisely how many knowledge workers spend their days, in a state of perpetual semi-attention, glancing at notifications while on calls, checking emails during meetings, and never fully engaging with any single task. The result is what productivity expert Cal Newport calls half work, the illusion of productivity that produces mediocre results while exhausting mental resources. Deep work, by contrast, involves focusing without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks. This state of full engagement activates neural networks associated with learning, problem-solving, and creative insight that simply don't engage during fragmented attention. Research from the University of California demonstrated that professionals in a flow state, the deepest form of concentration, are up to 5 times more productive than when working in a distracted environment. The first step toward deep work is recognizing and rejecting the myth of multitasking. What we call multitasking is actually rapid context switching that imposes a significant cognitive tax. Each switch requires your brain to reorient, recall relevant information, and suppress irrelevant thoughts, a process that creates mental friction and depletes cognitive resources. Even brief distractions like checking an incoming message can derail deep thinking for up to 20 minutes. Creating an environment conducive to deep work involves both physical and digital boundaries. Physically, seek spaces that signal focused work, whether a dedicated room, a specific desk arrangement, or even noise-canceling headphones that create an acoustic barrier. Digitally, implement what Newport calls digital minimalism by temporarily eliminating potential interruptions. This might mean closing email clients, silencing notifications, using website blockers, or activating Do Not Disturb modes on all devices. Schedule deep work sessions in advance rather than waiting for available time. Block at least 90-minute uninterrupted periods. Research shows this duration allows you to push past initial resistance and reach productive flow states. Many find that 90 to 120 minutes represents an optimal balance between sustained concentration and mental fatigue. Start with just 2 deep work sessions weekly, then gradually increase as your concentration stamina builds. Prepare for deep work by creating clear entry points. Before beginning, clarify exactly what you intend to accomplish and gather all necessary resources. Consider using a brief pre-work ritual like arranging your workspace, reviewing relevant materials, or spending 2 minutes in meditation that signals to your brain that focus time is beginning. The transition back to connected work modes requires equal intentionality. Rather than immediately checking messages after deep work, take 5 minutes to document your progress, capture any insights, and identify specific next steps. This closure creates a clean transition and ensures you extract maximum value from your focus time. Remember that deep work is less about duration than quality of attention. Even 30 minutes of genuinely undistracted focus will yield better results than hours of half work. By regularly practicing this full engagement, you'll develop not just better work products but an increasingly rare capacity for sustained concentration in an age of constant distraction. Chapter 15, Murphy-proofing your time. Murphy's Law famously states that anything that can go wrong, will go wrong, often at the most inconvenient possible moment. A study examining thousands of project timelines across industries found that managers who didn't account for unexpected complications underestimated completion times by an average of 40%. This planning fallacy affects individuals just as profoundly, explaining why we consistently find ourselves rushing to meet deadlines despite our best intentions. Murphy-proofing isn't about pessimism but pragmatic preparation, anticipating potential problems and building flexibility into your plans to accommodate inevitable complications. This proactive approach transforms your relationship with unexpected challenges from crisis management to confident adaptation. Begin by identifying potential bottlenecks and failure points in your current projects and commitments. For each significant task on your calendar, ask, what could prevent this from proceeding as planned? Common failure points include dependencies on others who might delay, technology that could malfunction, information that might be unavailable, or assumptions that could prove incorrect. Document these vulnerability points rather than merely hoping they won't materialize. Create specific contingency plans for mission-critical deadlines and commitments. If you're delivering an important presentation, have alternate access to your materials in case your primary device fails. If you're depending on input from a colleague who's frequently late, schedule your request earlier and build in follow-up time. These backup plans need not be elaborate often, just identifying an alternative approach in advance prevents panicked scrambling when issues arise. Implement the 1.5x rule when estimating task duration, particularly for unfamiliar or complex activities. Take your initial time estimate and multiply by 1.5 to account for unexpected complications, learning curves, and interruptions. For new types of work where you lack experience, consider doubling your initial estimate. This buffer might seem excessive, but research consistently shows that even experienced professionals significantly underestimate completion times for non-routine tasks. For multi-step projects, identify the critical path, the sequence of tasks that determines the minimum possible completion time. Build extra margin around these crucial steps rather than distributing buffer time equally across all activities. This targeted approach ensures flexibility where it matters most without unnecessarily extending the overall timeline. Learn systematically from past time estimation mistakes by maintaining a simple log of predicted versus actual completion times for important tasks. Review this record periodically to identify patterns in your planning assumptions. Do certain types of work consistently take longer than expected? Do specific circumstances reliably introduce delays? This data-driven approach develops a more accurate internal clock for future planning. Perhaps most importantly, communicate realistic timelines to others based on your Murphy-proofed estimates, not your optimistic best-case scenarios. Many professionals create unnecessary stress by promising delivery based on perfect conditions, then scrambling when normal complications arise. Setting appropriate expectations from the beginning allows you to deliver reliably rather than apologizing repeatedly for missed deadlines. Chapter 16: The No Interruption Zone. In 1957, psychologist John Carlson articulated what's now known as Carlson's law: interrupted work takes twice as long and contains twice as many errors as uninterrupted work. Modern research has only strengthened this finding. A study from the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after an interruption, while research from Microsoft revealed that even brief interruptions double the rate of errors in complex cognitive tasks. These findings explain why many knowledge workers feel perpetually behind despite long hours. Their days become fragmented into segments too brief for meaningful progress on important work. The solution isn't working longer but creating protected periods free from interruptions, what we might call no-interruption zones. Creating these zones begins with understanding the true cost of interruptions to cognitive work. When deeply engaged in complex thinking, your brain forms temporary neural connections that constitute your working memory. Each interruption disrupts these fragile connections, essentially resetting your mental context. The cost isn't just the interruption's duration but the additional time and mental energy required to reconstruct your previous thought process. Establishing physical signals that others respect represents a crucial first step. This might include closing your office door with a simple sign indicating when you'll be available again, wearing noise-canceling headphones in open offices, or moving to a designated quiet area during focused work periods. Make these signals consistent and ensure colleagues understand their meaning. Digital, do not disturb signals prove equally important in our connected workplaces. Configure your devices, messaging platforms, and email clients to suppress notifications during focused work periods. Tools like Focus Mode on iOS, Digital Wellbeing on Android, and Do Not Disturb settings on collaboration platforms create virtual boundaries as effective as physical doors when consistently used. Batch communications to minimize disruption throughout your day. Rather than remaining perpetually available for messages, designate specific periods for email, calls, and messaging. Communicate these windows to colleagues so they know when to expect responses. This batching creates natural no-interruption zones between communication sessions while still ensuring responsiveness within reasonable time frames. For unavoidable interruptions, develop rapid re-engagement strategies. Keep a notepad by your workspace to quickly jot where you were in your thinking before addressing the interruption. Some professionals maintain a state file for complex projects, a brief document noting current status, next steps, and key considerations that can quickly reorient them after disruptions. Implementing no-interruption zones requires both individual discipline and cultural support. Start small with just 30 to 60-minute protected periods daily, then gradually extend as you demonstrate the productivity benefits to yourself and others. Remember that these zones aren't about isolation but about creating the conditions for your most valuable contributions, work that requires sustained thought and creative problem-solving rather than fragmented attention. Chapter 17, The Power of No. Warren Buffett famously observed, "The difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything." Yet for many professionals, declining requests feels uncomfortable, even wrong. A University of California study found that the average knowledge worker says yes to 1.8 times more commitments than they can actually fulfill, creating a perpetual state of overcommitment that undermines performance across all responsibilities. Why is saying no so difficult? Research from Columbia University points to several factors: our natural desire to be helpful, fear of damaging relationships, concern about missed opportunities, and even simple people-pleasing tendencies. Yet paradoxically, thoughtful and selective declining of requests ultimately enables you to make your greatest contribution through the commitments you do accept. Evaluating incoming requests against your established priorities forms the foundation of effective decision-making about your time. Before responding to any significant request, assess it against 3 criteria: alignment with your core goals and values, realistic capacity given your current commitments, and comparative impact relative to other opportunities. This evaluation should happen before you respond, not after you've already agreed. For requests that don't meet these criteria, develop comfortable but clear declining scripts that preserve relationships while protecting your time. Effective refusals typically include appreciation for being asked, transparency about your decision without excessive justification, and warmth that affirms the relationship despite the decline. For example, "I'm honored you thought of me for this project. Given my current commitments, I can't give this the attention it deserves, but I appreciate your understanding." When a direct no isn't appropriate or desirable, consider offering alternatives that provide value while respecting your boundaries. These might include suggesting a more appropriate person, proposing a reduced scope of involvement, offering a specific resource instead of your time, or suggesting a timeframe that would work better for you. This approach demonstrates goodwill while still protecting your core priorities. Setting and maintaining clear boundaries around your time commitments requires ongoing vigilance. Many time management systems collapse not from major intrusions but from a series of small exceptions that gradually erode established boundaries. Recognize that each time you make an exception to your priorities, you're teaching others that your boundaries are negotiable. Remember that saying no isn't selfish but strategic. Every yes to a non-priority implicitly means saying no to something aligned with your core goals. The key question isn't whether an opportunity is good but whether it's the best use of your limited time given your specific mission and current commitments. Start practicing on smaller, less consequential requests to build your no muscle before tackling more difficult situations. Notice the discomfort that arises, acknowledge it without being controlled by it, and observe how quickly it passes compared to the extended stress of commitments you wish you hadn't accepted. Chapter 18, Rhythmic Routines. Elite athletes, renowned artists, and successful executives share a common trait often overlooked in productivity discussions: they rely on consistent routines rather than sporadic inspiration. Basketball legend Kobe Bryant's pre-dawn training sessions, writer Maya Angelou's practice of renting hotel rooms to work from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily, and former Apple CEO Tim Cook's 4:30 a.m. workout routine all exemplify the power of rhythmic routines in supporting exceptional performance. These routines work because they eliminate the decision fatigue that drains mental energy throughout the day. Research from the National Academy of Sciences revealed that judges make significantly more favorable rulings early in the day and after food breaks, with decisions becoming increasingly negative as mental energy depletes. By establishing automatic patterns for recurring activities, routines preserve your limited willpower for truly important decisions rather than mundane choices. Designing effective morning routines creates momentum that carries throughout the day. The most powerful morning sequences typically include 4 elements. Something physical that energizes your body, something mindful that centers your attention, something reflective that clarifies your priorities, and something productive that generates early progress. These elements need not be time-consuming. Even 5 to 10 minutes dedicated to each creates a powerful launch sequence for your day. Evening routines prove equally important for both performance and well-being. Effective wind-down sequences might include reviewing the day's accomplishments, preparing your workspace for tomorrow, identifying your top priorities for the coming day, and engaging in activities that promote quality sleep. This closure creates both practical readiness and psychological separation between work and rest. Creating themed days for different types of work establishes a natural rhythm to your week that reduces context switching and builds focus through consistency. Consider designating specific days for particular activities, perhaps Mondays for planning and administration, Tuesdays and Thursdays for collaborative work and meetings, Wednesdays for deep creative work, and Fridays for learning and reflection. This consistent structure helps both you and colleagues develop clearer expectations about availability and focus. The compound effect of consistent daily habits on long-term achievement cannot be overstated. A mere 1% improvement daily compounds to nearly 38 times better performance over a year. Small routine actions, 15 minutes of focused learning, 20 minutes of exercise, 30 minutes of deep work on your most important project, create dramatic results not through their individual impact but through their consistent repetition. As circumstances and priorities evolve, your routines should adapt accordingly. Review your regular patterns quarterly to ensure they still align with your current goals and work demands. The most sustainable routines balance structure with flexibility, providing reliable frameworks while allowing adaptation to changing conditions. Implementation begins with identifying just one routine to establish or improve. Focus on either your morning sequence or your evening wind down, starting with just 15 to 30 minutes of consistent patterns before expanding. Document your intended routine in writing, identify potential obstacles, and create environmental supports that make compliance easier than deviation. Within 30 to 60 days, these intentional patterns will transform into automatic habits that drive productivity without consuming willpower. These 18 rules form an interconnected system for taking control of your time and, by extension, your life. From the foundational practice of planning to the protective power of saying no, from the efficiency of batching similar tasks to the sustainability of rhythmic routines, each strategy reinforces the others, creating a comprehensive approach to time management that addresses both productivity and well-being. Perhaps the most important insight across these principles is that mastery comes through implementation, not just knowledge. Understanding these concepts intellectually without putting them into practice creates no more benefit than reading about exercise without ever visiting the gym. The transformation occurs in the doing, not the knowing. Start your implementation journey by selecting just 1 or 2 strategies that resonate most with your current challenges. If you constantly feel reactive rather than proactive, begin with planning and prioritization. If you complete plenty of tasks but make little progress on important projects, focus on time blocking and deep work. If you feel perpetually overwhelmed, delegation and the power of no might create immediate relief. As these initial strategies become habits, gradually incorporate others. Small, consistent improvements in how you manage time will compound into dramatic changes in your productivity, stress levels, and goal achievement. Remember that perfection isn't the standard, progress is. Even implementing these techniques at 70% effectiveness will create significant positive change in your relationship with time. The most powerful time management system is ultimately the one you actually use consistently. Adapt these principles to fit your personality, preferences, and specific circumstances. The framework provided here isn't rigid doctrine but a flexible foundation you can customize to create your own personal operating system for maximum effectiveness. The most important step is the one you take today to begin managing your time by design rather than by default. Your future self will thank you for the gift of intentionality, for reclaiming control of your most precious resource, and for creating space for what truly matters in your life and work. Thank you for listening to Time Code, 18 Rules to Manage Your Time Wisely from Audiobook's library. For quick reference, download our companion ebook with summaries of all 18 rules and implementation worksheets. Stay tuned for our upcoming audiobook. Subscribe to our channel for daily audiobooks that help you level up your life and career.